Leo paused on the other end of the line, then quickly replied, "Okay, I'll start applying to schools for you and get someone to handle your passport. It might take about a month." "Okay. Penny, have you told Ethan about this?" Hearing her brother mention Ethan Knight, Penelope Sterling fell silent for a moment. "Leo, don't tell him." After hanging up, she looked down at the pink diary on her desk, her hand gently tracing the writing on the cover. October 6, 2014. My brother left for overseas with our aunt. I stayed behind in Seaport City, living at brother Ethan's house. I finally get to live under the same roof as him. I'm so happy. Even though a decade had passed, the scene from that day remained as vivid as ever in her mind. The Knight and Sterling families had been friends for generations. After Penelope's parents died in a car crash, her Aunt Amelia came to Seaport City, intending to take both Penelope and her brother Leo back with her. But for Ethan's sake, Penelope chose to stay. The Knights even prepared a room for her on the second floor of their villa. Ethan had decorated it himself in a pink, princess style she adored. He had led her into the room back then, smiling as he said, "Penny, now that Leo isn't here, I'll be your brother. I promise I'll cherish you just like he did, make you the happiest person in Seaport City, the apple of my eye." That year, Penelope was 14 and Ethan was 19. From that day on, for 10 years, Ethan truly did treat her as the apple of his eye. But all of that came to an end a month ago. On Ethan's birthday, she had cooked a table full of his favorite dishes and baked a cake, waiting eagerly for him to come home. But he didn't come back alone. He had a woman with him. "Penny, this is Talia Monroe. From now on, she'll be your sister-in-law." Ethan's arm was wrapped around Talia's waist as he introduced her with a doting look. "And this is Penny, my little sister." "Sister? Sister-in-law?" A shiver ran down Penelope's spine, the smile freezing on her face. For a long moment, she didn't know how to react. She remembered her 18th birthday. Ethan had gotten drunk and held her, his cool lips pressing against her hot ear as he murmured, "Penny, I've finally waited for you to grow up." Her face had burned red, her eyes wide. She'd wanted to ask him what he meant, but he had fallen asleep. When she tried to ask him the next day, he claimed he'd forgotten. But Penelope had etched those words into her heart, testing the waters with him from time to time. In the years that followed, they were like a couple in everything but name. They celebrated every holiday together, big and small. Every Valentine's Day, he would prepare a gift for her. She was afraid of thunder, and he would come to her room in the middle of the night, holding her and whispering soft reassurances. They would hold hands and go to the movies, out to eat, on trips. For 6 years, they were inseparable. Penelope had always believed they would go on like this forever, but in that one moment, everything shattered. He said she was just his sister and had brought home a real sister-in-law. So all that intimacy she thought they shared, in his eyes, was just the affection between a brother and a sister. Penelope barely made it through that dinner, the fake smile plastered on her face making her cheeks ache. She picked at her food before retreating to her room. Listening to the sounds of Ethan and Talia laughing and teasing each other in the living room, her heart twisted into a tight knot. Even so, she decided to wait for her own birthday, 2 months away, to formally confess her feelings to him. Whatever the outcome, she wanted to give her decade-long love a proper conclusion. But she didn't have to wait that long. One day, she forgot a file and rushed home at lunchtime to get it, only to walk in on Ethan and Talia tangled together on the sofa, their clothes nearly all shed. Seeing her, Talia scrambled to cover herself with a blanket, her face flushed as she burrowed into Ethan's arms. "Ethan, didn't you say she wouldn't be back today?" In that instant, Penelope's heart died. From that day on, Talia shamelessly moved into the villa where only Penelope and Ethan lived. Night after night, she would laugh and flirt with Ethan in the living room, as if putting on a show just for Penelope. Penelope's heart ached as if it were being torn apart, but she didn't dare ask any questions. She was afraid that if she opened her mouth, Ethan would say, "Penny, you're a grown woman now. I'm marrying Talia, so it's time for you to move out." In Penelope's mind, she could leave on her own terms, but she couldn't bear to be driven away by Ethan. That would wound the bond they had shared for 10 years, the memories she treasured in her heart. And she didn't want to destroy those memories. "Penelope, I know people used to say you were the Knight's unofficial child bride, that you and Ethan were destined to marry." Talia, wearing a silk nightgown, was standing at her bedroom door, her chin held high. But Ethan and I are getting married next month. You're 24 now. Shouldn't you have the decency to move out? With that, Talia walked in, leaning on the desk. Her eyes flicked to the notebook in Penelope's hand as she sneered, "Penelope, Ethan and I are adults. Sparks fly easily between us, but we have to be mindful of you, worried you'll pop up out of nowhere." Like that last time, our clothes were already off when you interrupted, and the mood was completely ruined. You're 24. You're not so naive you don't understand, are you? Just consider this a request from your future sister-in-law. Please, stop getting in our way, okay? Penelope closed her diary and turned to look at Talia coolly. Fine, I understand. She had lost count of how many times Talia had provoked her like this. At first, it had hurt, but now, after so many times, she had grown numb. Besides, she had already decided to leave, so she couldn't be bothered to engage with Talia's taunts. But Talia wouldn't let her go, grabbing her hand. You say that every time, but you still haven't moved out. What are you planning? Do you think Ethan will break up with me and get with you? Penelope frowned, pulling her hand away. You're overthinking things. What kind of attitude is that? Miss Monroe, while you may be marrying brother Ethan next month, you aren't married yet. This is his house, and I believe that until he asks me to leave, I still have the right to live here. Penelope pushed her toward the door. And another thing, I don't like people coming into my room. I'd appreciate it if you respected that, okay? She moved to shut the door, but Talia blocked it with her foot, shoving the door open with force. It slammed into Penelope's head, making her stagger. I'm warning you, you'd better drop those unrealistic fantasies. It's been 10 years, and Ethan still hasn't made a move. You should get the hint. Talia was right. In 10 years, Penelope hadn't managed to get Ethan to confess his feelings, but it had only taken Talia a month to climb into his bed, move into his house, and become his publicly acknowledged fiancée. Penelope had had enough of her provocations. She pushed Talia away forcefully. That's enough, I don't want to hear it. The next second, she saw Talia fall to the ground, her eyes filled with tears as she looked up pitifully. Penny, you still can't accept me, can you? If you really think I stole Ethan from you, I can leave. I can give him back to you. Penelope froze, her mouth open to speak, when a tall figure rushed over. He swept Talia off the floor and into his arms, then turned to glare coldly at Penelope, his voice a stern warning. Penelope, Talia has been more than kind, more than patient with you. Drop the spoiled brat act and show your future sister-in-law some respect. He then looked down at Talia's tear-streaked face, his tone softening with affection. I'm sorry you had to go through this. If she's ever rude to you again, you can teach her a lesson yourself. Teach her a lesson. Penelope's hand tightened on the doorframe. The pain on her forehead faded into numbness. She remembered when she was bullied by some punks at school. Without a second thought, Ethan had stormed into the school, found them, and beat them up. He paid a hefty sum in compensation and then had the family run out of Seaport City. But now, he didn't care that she was hurt. When she was bullied, he said it was her fault for not behaving and let an outsider discipline her as they pleased. How absurd. A bitter smile touched Penelope's lips. She slammed the door shut with a loud bang, returned to her desk, and without a second thought, threw the diary filled with a young girl's secrets into the trash. But that wasn't enough to quell her anger. She swept all the dolls, trinkets, and other gifts from Ethan off her desk and into the bin. Then she carried the bin out of her room, marched to the communal dumpster for the villa complex, and threw the entire thing bin and all inside before turning back. But the weather, as fickle as fate, suddenly turned. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the air grew thick and humid, making it hard to breathe. Then, a torrential downpour began. Penelope just stood in the rain, arms outstretched, embracing it. Once she was soaked to the bone, her heart finally calmed. Penelope, you're leaving anyway. Why let them get to you? That night, as Penelope packed her bags, waves of laughter echoed from the master bedroom. She cursed at herself for not being deaf, for being able to hear those unbearable sounds. After a sleepless night, Penelope woke up early, dark circles under her eyes, and headed for the door. She ran right into Ethan, who was just returning with breakfast. 2 cartons of soy milk, 2 sandwiches, nothing for her. She silently averted her gaze and, without lingering, changed her shoes in the foyer and walked out. Penny, be nicer to your sister-in-law from now on. We're getting married in a month, and she'll officially be your family. If you're not good to her, I'll have to ask you to move out. Ethan's voice wasn't loud, but it was filled with distance and coldness. Penelope stopped. She desperately wanted to ask him why, but she felt she had no right. She just nodded faintly. Okay, I know, but I didn't bully her yesterday. Ethan's dark eyes landed on the suitcase in the corner of the living room, narrowing slightly. Penny, you're a grown woman. You should understand. Talia is marrying into the Knight family alone. Facing a sister-in-law with no blood relation to her husband, she's bound to be sensitive and on guard. You should be more tolerant. More tolerant? Penelope didn't argue. She just clenched her fists unconsciously and forced herself to respond, I understand, brother Ethan. Her coldness seemed to irritate him, and his tone grew sharper. Penelope, I'm being serious with you. Don't just brush me off every time. I don't want a repeat of this, understand? Unwilling to face him any longer, she pushed the door open and fled. Once outside, she realized it was raining. She rummaged through her bag and found she hadn't brought an umbrella. She started to go back for one, but as she reached the door, she heard Talia's coquettish voice from inside. She stopped, turned, and ran into the rain. Before, whenever it rained, Ethan, afraid she'd get wet, would always drive her. Even for the few steps from the car to the building, he'd hold an umbrella over her. Every time, his umbrella would tilt toward her, leaving his own shoulder soaked. Back then, she had read a line online, "Love is a tilted umbrella." There was no doubt that, at that time, Ethan had loved her. But somewhere along the way, his eyes no longer had room for her. Once, she was the apple of his eye. Now, she was an obstacle to him and Talia. When she got to the office, her boss informed her that the project she had just secured had been transferred to Talia. She was also instructed to hand over another major project to her. Penelope went to argue with her boss, but he cut her off with two simple sentences. Penelope, I know this is tough, but these are Mr. Knight's orders. This advertising agency was a company Ethan had acquired after she started working there. He had stood with her in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor, holding her hand, and said, Penny, I want you to be a princess wherever you go, and I will be your loyal knight, always protecting you. But now, the knight had a new princess, and she was the one who'd been abandoned. Knowing it was Ethan's arrangement, Penelope said nothing more and returned to her office. To her surprise, as she entered, she saw several colleagues carrying her things out and piling them by the door. Penelope, you're just in time. Mr. Knight gave this office to Miss Monroe. From now on, you'll be in the one next to the restroom. The one next to the restroom? That wasn't an office. It was just a storage closet. It didn't even have a window. But thinking she only had a month left anyway, she didn't argue. She just nodded, gathered her things, and walked toward the closet. I understand. Everything Ethan was doing now felt like he was taking back all the love he had ever given her and handing it to another woman. Penelope gave a bitter smile. Brother Ethan, aren't you being a little too stingy? But she had no idea that Ethan's stinginess went far beyond that. With all her projects snatched by Talia, Penelope had nothing to do but draft new proposals for new clients. But no sooner had she finished writing a proposal than Talia would steal it, meet with the client first, and sign the contract under her own name. Penelope saw it all happen from the doorway. She told herself she was leaving soon anyway, and all this would eventually be Talia's, so there was no point in dwelling on it. As she was about to walk away, she saw Ethan emerge from the conference room. Their eyes met, and she felt the chilling coldness in his gaze. Brother Ethan, that proposal content? Don't you remember? Before she could finish, Ethan cut her off coldly. Penelope, Talia just joined the company and she needs projects. Just let her have it. You're talented, you can just write another one. He had forgot. 6 years ago, on her 18th birthday, Ethan had taken her to that very amusement park. Watching the costumed characters, she had clung to his arm and murmured, Brother Ethan, don't you think it would be romantic if the park had a pavilion themed around different kinds of wedding proposals? At that time, Ethan had looked down, affectionately tapping her nose. When you're older, you can design one yourself, and I'll help you make it happen. But now, the proposal she had spent nights researching and writing, a dream from her 18th birthday, was so easily snatched away by him and given to Talia? Penelope scoffed. Not only had he forgotten, but he had personally destroyed her 18th birthday dream. How cruel. Just then, Talia came out and leaned intimately against Ethan. Ethan, let's go get something to eat. She then glanced symbolically at Penelope. Penny, wanna join us?" Before Penelope could refuse, Ethan took Talia's hand and started walking away. "She has things to do. Let's not let anyone disturb our private time." "Really? That's great. I want to have our private time together every day forever." Ethan tapped her nose affectionately. "Silly girl, of course, we'll be together forever." He used to tap her nose just like that, whispering those same sweet words to her. But everything had changed in the blink of an eye. Watching their retreating backs, Penelope forced a strained smile, but her eyes were filled with an irresolvable bitterness. Talia had managed to get close to Ethan entirely because of Penelope. Although Ethan had acquired the advertising agency, he rarely came to the office. Most company matters were handled by his assistant or by Penelope. He only ever came for one reason: to see her. Talia was a newcomer who had joined the company 3 months ago. Being slightly older than Penelope, she was initially kind and gentle, always buying her snacks and inviting her to lunch. Penelope, who had always wanted an older sister, didn't mind. She had even invited Ethan to a company team-building event and introduced them. That was how Talia had connected with Ethan. Penelope thought this must be what they call shooting yourself in the foot, losing on all fronts. How pathetic. "Penelope, don't forget the team-building event tonight." A colleague suddenly tapped her on the shoulder, pulling her out of her memories. "Okay." She had already submitted her resignation, and this would likely be her last company event, so she didn't refuse. After work, she went with everyone else, not expecting that Ethan would also be there with Talia. After dinner, they went to a karaoke bar. Someone started egging on Ethan and Talia to link arms and drink. Do it," faced with the crowds cheering, Talia shyly buried her face in Ethan's chest. Ethan, however, showed no hesitation. He took 2 glasses of wine and linked arms with her for the toast. After downing the glass, Talia grew bolder. She cupped Ethan's face and kissed him. Ethan froze, instinctively wanting to push her away, but instead, he held the back of her head and deepened the kiss. Penelope sat in a corner, watching it all. The bitterness in her heart was so strong it soured her mouth, making her down 1 glass of alcohol after another. She remembered her own 20th birthday. Tipsy and bold, she had kissed Ethan. He had reacted the same way then, holding her head and deepening the kiss. She couldn't remember how long they had kissed, only that she was nearly breathless. When she pulled back for a moment to breathe, he had pressed in again. When it started, the movie A Chinese Odyssey was playing on the TV. By the time they finished, it was near the end. She had dazedly hugged him and asked, "Brother Ethan, will we be like Joker and Zixia, fated to meet but not to be together?" She clearly remembered him holding her tightly, his voice hoarse. "No, we'll be together for a long, long time, for eternity." But he had broken his promise. Penelope didn't remember how she got home that night. In a daze, she smelled the familiar scent of his cologne, and a cool, gentle kiss seemed to land on her lips. But when she woke up the next day, the Ethan she saw was as cold and distant as ever. She smiled bitterly. The feelings from last night must have been a dream. She decided she shouldn't drink anymore. The withdrawal after the dream woke her up made her nearly numb heart feel a tearing pain once again. She thought nothing else would happen before she left, but with just 10 days to go, Talia started her drama again. It was the weekend. Penelope had mostly finished packing. 2 large pink suitcases sat quietly in the living room, ready to be shipped ahead in a few days. She didn't want to stay home and watch Ethan and Talia's lovey-dovey act, so she took her ballet shoes and went to her usual dance studio, hoping to dance her troubles away. At the studio, she changed her clothes and shoes as usual. But just a few steps into her routine, a sharp pain shot through her right foot, and she collapsed to the floor. She had been in the middle of a leap, and her foot couldn't bear the weight, causing her to sprain her ankle as she fell. When she took off her ballet shoe, she found a thumbtack inside. It had pierced the sole of her foot, leaving the pale skin a shocking, bloody red. Other dancers rushed over, applying pressure to the wound, and then carried her to a car to take her to the hospital. At the hospital, after the doctor bandaged her foot, he frowned. "How could you be so careless?" He sighed and shook his head. "Well, we doctors see this a lot. A thumbtack in a dancer's shoe, a singer poisoned by a rival, an artist's hands injured by a competitor." The doctor's words were a sudden reminder. Penelope remembered seeing Talia lurking by the shoe cabinet 2 days ago, holding her ballet shoes. When she'd asked what she was doing, Talia had said she was getting her own shoes and had accidentally grabbed Penelope's. Penelope hadn't thought much of it then, but now, a chill ran down her spine. She knew Talia disliked her, but she never imagined she could be so malicious. She dialed Ethan's number, but all she heard was a busy tone. Once, twice, 3 times on the 4th try, which she had decided would be her last, Ethan's impatient voice came through. "What is it?" "Brother Ethan, I'm at the hose." Talia's playful laughter came from the other end, followed by some noise. It sounded like they were kissing, their heavy breathing making Penelope think of their nightly activities. Her ears burned, and she instantly hung up. Even if she told him now, Ethan would hardly believe her. After all, as they say online, when a man is in bed with a woman, he'll believe anything she says. After getting her wound treated, Penelope was afraid of interrupting their good time. So she waited at the hospital until 10 o'clock before heading home. Just as she left the hospital, she got a call from Ethan. "It's 10. Why aren't you back yet?" "Penelope, there's a limit to throwing a tantrum, you know?" Penelope took a sharp breath. "Brother Ethan, I went dancing today, and Ethan, can you get me a towel?" Before she could finish, Talia's sweet voice called out from the other end. Ethan lost his patience. "Just get back here. As long as you're living in my house, don't even think about staying out all night." With that, he hung up. Penelope smiled bitterly. The only reason she hadn't come back was because she was afraid of disturbing them. Her left ankle was sprained and her right foot was pierced, but she could still manage to drive. She drove very slowly, and when she reached the villa, she was extra careful not to wake anyone inside. After parking the car, she limped through the door and walked straight into a hard chest. She stumbled backward, but a strong arm wrapped around her waist, steadying her. Penelope knew who it was from the familiar scent. She looked up, and her gaze met his deep, dark eyes, getting drawn in. "Where have you been?" Before Penelope could answer, Ethan pointed to the 2 pink suitcases in the living room. "What are these for?" "Penelope, you're 24. Don't play these childish games of running away from home with me. It's just one proposal. That's enough." "I'm not running away," she wanted to say. "I'm leaving you for good, getting back on the right track." But Penelope couldn't be bothered to say it. In Ethan's eyes, it probably made no difference. Ethan noticed the smell of antiseptic on her, his handsome brows furrowed. "Behave, Talia is your friend too, you shouldn't be so petty. If you keep acting up, I'll call Leo to come get you and stop you from making trouble here." Penelope froze. For a moment, her foot didn't seem to hurt so much. In the past 10 years, she had thrown tantrums before. But no matter how much she acted out, no matter how angry he got, he had never once threatened to send her back to Leo. But this time, for Talia, he was kicking her out. She was about to say, "No need, I have legs, I can walk myself out." But before she could speak, a scream came from inside. "Ah, Ethan, Ethan, blood, so much blood." Without a second thought, Ethan turned and ran inside. A moment later, he emerged, carrying Talia, whose leg was bleeding. The bright red blood stained Ethan's white shirt, but he paid it no mind, his brows tightly knitted as he soothed her. "Don't be afraid. I'm taking you to the hospital now. It'll be okay." As fate would have it, Ethan, carrying Talia, came over just as Penelope was limping and leaning against the wall, trying to move inside. With both feet injured, her reactions were slow. She had just tried to step aside when Ethan's shoulder slammed into her, knocking her aside as he left without a backward glance. As Penelope fell to the floor, she looked up and saw Talia's smug smile. In that moment, Penelope found the whole situation utterly ridiculous. Ethan used to be just as worried about her, but now he hadn't even noticed she was injured. She suddenly thought that maybe it was a good thing Ethan had shattered her 18th birthday dream. That night, Ethan and Talia didn't come back. Penelope tossed and turned in her quilt for a long time before drifting into a restless sleep. At 9 in the morning, the phone rang. It was Ethan. Penelope thought he had found out about her resignation and hesitated for a moment before answering. "I have a meeting at the company this morning that I have to attend. Talia's foot is injured, and it's inconvenient for her. You go take care of her." Before Penelope could refuse, he had hung up. The call was an order, not a discussion. He was treating her like a maid, such a deep, magnetic voice, yet it spoke such heartless words. Penelope looked out the window. The sun was shining brightly, a gentle breeze was blowing. It was a beautiful day. Although she didn't want to take care of Talia, Ethan had, after all, been good to her. Besides, she was leaving in a week. There was no need to stir up more trouble. She checked her foot. The sprain was mostly better, but the puncture wound still hurt when she walked, forcing her to stay on her toes. Just as she stood up, using the bed for support, the phone rang again. This time, it was Talia. "Ethan said you're bringing me food? Hurry up, I'm hungry. Don't make me wait too long." Talia didn't give Penelope a chance to speak. "I want the wontons from North Street and the crispy pastries from South City. You have to be quick, or the wontons will get cold and the pastries won't be crispy and they'll taste awful." North Street and South City were on opposite sides of town. Just the taxi ride would take an hour. The whole trip would take at least 2.5 hours. Penelope frowned. "Pick one, North Street or South City." Talia was not happy. "Penelope, Ethan asked you to take care of me. What's with the attitude? You're not afraid I'll complain to him?" "Heh, you might just find yourself kicked out tonight. I'd love to see that." "Fine, just wait. It will take some time." "I don't care. If you don't meet my demands, I'll tell on you anyway." "You figure it out, Penelope." After hanging up, Penelope irritably threw her phone on the bed and went to the bathroom to get ready. She wasn't a patient person by nature, but she was leaving soon and didn't want any more drama. Talia was the type to make a scene, and she was in no mood to play along. After getting dressed, Penelope ordered a car to North Street and arranged for a city courier to pick up the items from South City and deliver them to North Street. That way, she could save herself one trip. However, when she arrived at the hospital with the food, Talia had changed her mind. "I wanted vegetarian wontons, you bought pork. Are you trying to make me fat? And these pastries, how am I supposed to eat something so oily? And where's the soy milk? You didn't even get soy milk." Talia pushed everything away. "Go buy it again. This time I want a sandwich from Pret and a coffee from Starbucks. And my coffee has to be—" "Talia, that's enough." Penelope knew she was just trying to cause trouble. She turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Talia swept the wontons and pastries off the table. The broth splattered on the floor and the bedsheets, leaving the room in a mess. "Penelope, I know you don't like me, but you don't have to be like this, do you?" Penelope stared, stunned. Before she could speak, the door behind her opened, and Ethan's tall figure walked in. He saw the chaotic room and Talia crying pitifully with red eyes. "Penelope, what are you doing?" Before Talia could even complain, Ethan had already started. He grabbed her wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he would crush it. "I've been more than tolerant with you. Why are you getting worse? I just asked you to take care of Talia, and you throw a fit like this? You can't stand her that much." Penelope bit her lip. "I didn't do anything." "Didn't do anything?" Ethan's dark eyes were cold, staring at her as if he wanted to devour her. "Last night, you clearly saw Talia was injured and bleeding, yet you deliberately blocked the doorway to waste time. Did you really think I didn't notice?" A chill spread from the soles of her feet to her heart. She wanted to cry, but instead, she smiled. It was a smile without a trace of warmth, cold and mocking. For the first time, she thought Ethan was a fool. Growing up, Ethan had always been a top student, the one everyone praised. But ever since Talia appeared, it was as if he'd lost his intelligence and his soul. He had changed. Everything had changed. She couldn't understand it anymore. But Penelope felt she didn't need to understand. She was leaving soon. Their lives would no longer intersect. What happened between him and Talia was none of her business. So she just smiled, glanced at them both, and violently shook off Ethan's hand before limping out. When someone has already decided you're at fault, explanations just sound like excuses. So she chose silence. Ethan watched her leave, the coldness in his dark eyes receding, replaced by an unfathomable depth. No one knew what he was thinking. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't think this would happen." Ethan snapped back to reality and glanced at her faintly. "Just call housekeeping to clean it up. I'll have them change your room." After returning home, Penelope started packing again. Even though she had thrown out a lot of things related to Ethan, there was still a lot left in her room. The flowers they planted together, the matching couples mugs they made at a pottery studio, and many thick photo albums, documenting every moment they had spent together over the past 10 years. Back then, whenever he was with her, Ethan would secretly take pictures of her. Penelope randomly opened an album. Inside was a picture of her drooling in her sleep while doing homework, and another of her sneakily eating the ornamental fruits his mother had grown. Besides the solo shots, there were many photos of them together. At the amusement park, hiking, watching the sunrise and sunset, looking at those memories, Penelope's vision gradually blurred. She once believed that with such a weight of memories, their bond was indestructible. She never thought that Talia, in just a month or two, could destroy their 10 years together. Perhaps this was what love was. She wasn't the one Ethan loved, just a habit born of constant companionship. Penelope carried all the photo albums to the backyard, took out the barbecue grill, lit a fire, and began pulling the photos out one by one, tossing them into the flames. Just as she finished burning one album, Ethan suddenly rushed over and snatched the remaining ones from her hands. "What are you doing?" Penelope reached for them. "Give them back. Give them to you so you can burn them." Ethan's dark eyes stared at her. "Just because I said a few words to you at the hospital, Penelope, have I spoiled you too much? Is that why you've become so lawless? What does it have to do with you if I burn my own photos?" Penelope didn't argue. She just moved closer to snatch the albums back. Ethan held them high above his head. "I took these photos. You have no right to dispose of them. But I'm in the photos. I have a right to my own image." Ethan was 6'1". Even if Penelope jumped, she couldn't reach his raised arm. It was just like when they were children. She could only ever look up at him, while he remained at a height she could never reach. Her foot was already hurting. After a couple of failed jumps, she gave up. "If you want them, you can have them. But brother Ethan, Talia might get jealous if she sees them. I'm burning them for your own good." With that, she turned and walked back inside. It wasn't until she was back in her room that the tears finally burst forth. She slid down against the door, covering her mouth to stifle her sobs. To sever this dream-like decade, she was the one who felt the most pain. 2 days before her departure, the shipping company came and took the 2 pink suitcases from the living room. Penelope packed her carry-on items into a small suitcase and looked around her room. Besides the bedding, almost everything had been thrown out or mailed away. The room felt empty and large, and an unexpected sadness welled up inside her. She had thought Ethan didn't care about her and wouldn't notice her resignation, but on the second to last day, he found out. He stormed to her room, about to confront her about quitting, but when he saw her empty room, his expression changed. "Penelope, what on earth are you doing? Quitting your job, emptying your room? Haven't you had enough of this tantrum?" In that moment, Penelope suddenly felt that in Ethan's eyes, she would always be a child who never grew up. That's why he always used the word tantrum to describe anything she did. "I just don't want to get in the way of you and Talia. After all, you're getting married in 2 days. It wouldn't be appropriate for me, your non-blood-related sister, to keep living here, would it?" Penelope smiled serenely. "As for my job, another company offered me a high salary. Rather than stay at a company where I'm stuck in a storage closet, isn't it better to go to one where I have room to grow?" Ethan's brows furrowed, his dark eyes coldly scanning her from head to toe. "Penelope, move your things back. Your tantrum needs to have a limit. As long as you get along with Talia, there's no need to move out. This house is big enough for you." "But I don't want to." Penelope's clear eyes met his. "I'm afraid I'll disturb your married life. It's really not convenient with an outsider around, is it?" "You!" Before Ethan could finish, his phone rang. His expression softened as he spoke into it in a gentle, coaxing tone. "Be good. You go ahead with them. I'll be there in a minute." After hanging up, Ethan couldn't be bothered to argue with her anymore. "Penelope, I'm saying this one last time, stop the tantrum. My patience is limited." He slipped on the jacket that was draped over his arm. "Today is Talia's party to celebrate her discharge from the hospital. If you want to go, you can come along." "No, thanks, I'd rather stay home." Ethan gave her a cold glance. "Fine. Suit yourself." She had actually wanted to ask him out for one last dinner tonight to properly say goodbye to the past 10 years. But with Ethan gone, he didn't return before she left. She had tried calling him, but Talia answered, looking for Ethan. Talia deliberately let her hear the sound of the shower in the background, her voice dripping with a suggestive tone. "Penelope, Ethan and I have had to flee to a hotel just to have a normal married life, and you're still hounding us. Can't you be a little more considerate?" That one sentence completely extinguished any remaining hope. Penelope stood in the living room with her small suitcase. In her mind's eye, she saw the Ethan of the past, smiling at her, so gentle and handsome it was mesmerizing. But she resolutely deleted all his contact information, turned around, and dragged her suitcase out the door. No matter how good he was, it had nothing to do with her anymore. Staying would only hurt all three of them. Why should she torture herself? The moment she left, Ethan's car pulled up to the villa. He searched the entire house, but found no trace of Penelope. Her room was empty except for a flower vase with an envelope tucked underneath. Ethan walked over, picked up the envelope, and found a letter and a card inside. "Brother Ethan, thank you for taking care of me for the past 10 years. This is a small token of my appreciation. I wish you and Talia a happy marriage. Penelope, don't miss me." The pin for the card was written on a sticky note. It was his birthday. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest, so intense it almost made him faint. A violent spasm seized his lungs, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood onto the letter she'd left him. He casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled, but the smile looked more and more bitter. Los Angeles International Airport. Penelope, carrying a small suitcase, had just landed. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for the figure she hadn't seen in nearly a decade. "Penny!" A deep, pleasant voice called out from the crowd. She followed the sound and saw a tall, imposing figure striding toward her. His handsome face and innate elegance made him stand out. Smiling, Penelope ran with her suitcase and threw herself into Leo Sterling's arms. "Leo," she nuzzled against his chest, "I've missed you so much." Leo flicked her forehead gently. "You still know how to miss me? I thought my little sister had forgotten she had a brother." Over the past 10 years, Leo had returned to Seaport City to see Penelope every year, but due to work, he could only stay for a week or two at most. And most of that time, Penelope was often busy with other things. So for the past decade, the siblings had barely seen each other. "Leo, from now on, I'm sticking with you. I'm not going anywhere. Even if you try to kick me out, I won't leave. Even if you get tired of me, I'm not leaving." Leo was helpless against her. No matter how stern his words, his actions were always doting. With one strong arm, he lifted her up, while his other hand held her suitcase. "You'll stay at my place for now. I'll take you to see Aunt Amelia in a few days. Do you know, when she heard you were coming, she was determined to rush over from Seattle. If Uncle Arthur hadn't fallen ill and gone to the hospital right before they were about to leave, there would have been no stopping her." "Is it anything serious?" Penelope clung to Leo, her face resting on his shoulder. The long-missed embrace of her brother felt so warm and reassuring. For a moment, she wondered why, 10 years ago, she had chosen Ethan over her brother. Later, she thought that people are just like that. When you're young, you just keep hitting your head against a wall until you learn. After wasting your youth and taking a fall, you start to regret your past choices. But even if she could do it all over again, she probably would have stayed by Ethan's side. After all, the 10 years they had together were truly beautiful. It was just, the ending was so desolate. "Did you have a fight with Ethan?" Leo placed her in the car, observing the subtle emotions on her face. "Are you sure about this time? You're not planning on going back, or is it that he's getting married?" Penelope looked at the foreign scenery flashing by her window and said faintly, "He's getting married. It wouldn't be right for me to keep living there, would it? After all, he's not my real brother. What would it look like, having a non-blood-related sister in the house? Then we won't go back." Leo naturally knew about her feelings for Ethan. All these years, he had thought Ethan would marry her. He never expected him to marry someone else. If he weren't overseas, he would have punched him in the face. But he didn't want to reopen Penelope's wounds, so he didn't ask any more questions. "Leo, after dinner, can you take me out? I want to go to the Griffith Observatory to see the stars." "Sure, we'll go right after dinner." After dinner, Penelope was in high spirits, chattering away to Leo about all sorts of things. Leo patiently explained the school situation and her future arrangements. She agreed to everything, looking as if she wasn't afraid of anything. "With you here, what do I have to be afraid of? If the sky falls, my brother will be there to hold it up for me, right?" Leo smiled and ruffled her hair. "Of course." At night, the observatory overlooked the entirety of Los Angeles. But looking at the bustling city, sparkling like fallen stars, Penelope felt it was no different from Seaport City. She went to a telescope to look at the stars. Remembering how she had once told Ethan she hoped to come to Los Angeles to see her brother and then see the stars here. Just then, she saw a shooting star streak across the sky, falling into the boundless night, much like her 10 years with Ethan. As she watched the shooting star, Leo's phone rang. It was Ethan. "Is Penny with you?" Leo's dark eyes turned cold. "Yes, so don't interrupt our sibling bonding time. As long as she's okay." Ethan's tone was flat, his emotions unreadable. Leo, however, was annoyed. "That's enough. Since you're getting married, stop with the phony act. Go be with your wife. Penny doesn't need you anymore." "Leo, call me tonight when Penny's asleep." "I'll be waiting." After Ethan hung up, Leo's frustration peaked. They had once been the best of friends, otherwise he never would have left Penelope in Seaport City. But in the end, Ethan had hurt her. What was the meaning of this now? But Leo didn't want Penelope to notice anything, so he softened his expression and put on a gentle look, walking over to ruffle her hair. "So, what did you see?" "A shooting star." Penelope turned and smiled at him. "Leo, seeing a shooting star on my first day in Lowe's Angels must mean I made the right choice coming here. Did you make a wish?" I did, but I'm not telling you. It won't come true if I say it out loud." "Where do you want to go tomorrow?" Penelope tilted her head, thinking. "Santa Monica Beach. There's a Ferris wheel on the pier. I want to ride it." "Okay, let's head back now, get a good night's sleep, and I'll take you tomorrow." Penelope threw herself into Leo's arms. "That's great, my real brother is the best, after all." Then, she suddenly looked up and asked, "Leo, if you get a sister-in-law in the future, will you abandon me too?" "Silly girl." Leo froze for a moment, his handsome brows furrowing slightly. His tone was incredibly doting. "I will never abandon you. If I had to choose, I would choose to grow old with my Penny." Penelope laughed a few times, broke free from his embrace, and skipped a couple of steps. "You might be willing, but I'm going to fall in love, you know." Leo chuckled helplessly, only hoping that she could truly find love again. Seaport City. When Talia returned, the villa was dark except for a single yellow floor lamp, casting long shadows. She could make out a figure on the sofa but couldn't see his face. "Ethan." Though she couldn't see clearly, Talia could feel the air temperature drop to near freezing. She didn't dare move, standing stiffly in place. "Ethan, about the wedding tomorrow?" "It's canceled." Ethan put a cigarette to his lips and tried to light it with a lighter, but it took several clicks to ignite. "Ethan, let me help you." Just as Talia started to move forward, a bone-chilling voice came from the darkness. "Not needed." In all the time she'd known him, Ethan had always been gentle and doting in her presence. She had never seen this side of him. A shiver of fear ran through her, and her body froze. "Ethan," click. The lighter finally flared to life, the blue flame flickering across Ethan's grim, terrifying face. Talia gasped, not daring to make another sound. So close to becoming Mrs. Knight, she wasn't willing to lose now. She stood her ground, fists clenched, waiting for him to speak again. Ethan took a deep drag from his cigarette, the long fingers holding it looking ghostly in the dim yellow light. "Pack your things tonight and move out tomorrow." "Move out?" Talia was truly panicking now. "Ethan, why do I have to move out? Why is our wedding canceled?" Before she could finish, a disdainful, cold laugh came from the darkness. "Talia, do you really think you're Mrs. Knight? Don't forget, you're just an actress I hired." As if fed up with Talia's pushiness, Ethan shot to his feet. "Pack your things and get out now." He turned and headed upstairs. As he passed Penelope's room, he stopped abruptly and strode inside. Ethan looked at the empty room, an indescribable emptiness and ache in his heart. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a pair of pink ballet shoes on the desk. He had bought these for her at the beginning of the year. She had cherished them then, but now she had left them here, as if she had abandoned him. He reached out to touch the shoes, and a sharp pain pricked his fingertip. He looked down and saw a thumbtack inside, stained with both old and new blood. An image of her limping at the doorway that night flashed through his mind, and another sharp pain pierced his heart. "Ethan, but our engagement has already been announced. If we cancel like this, how will I ever get married? Can't we at least have the ceremony?" Talia, still unwilling to give up, had followed him, trying to use this argument to trap him. She had thought that since he hired her as an actress, he must have some interest in her. Besides, at the team-building event when she kissed him, he hadn't refused. He had even held her head and kissed her back. If that wasn't considered liking her, what was? But as she looked up, she met Ethan's deep, cold, dark eyes, and it scared her so much she froze, her hand gripping the doorframe. Ethan, holding the shoe, turned to face her, his thin lips forming a cold, emotionless question. Did you put the thumbtack in the shoe? Talia's heart lurched, her blood running cold. Her hand gripping the doorframe dug into the wall as she tried to feign composure and deny it. No, why would I do something like that? Not you. No. Ethan's dark eyes stared at her unwaveringly. Suddenly, a curve formed on his lips, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, making one's heart grow colder the more they looked. Mr. Knight, you don't suspect me, do you? Ethan didn't waste any more words on her. He directly called his assistant. Bring 2 bodyguards in here and throw this person in jail for me. He narrowed his eyes, his voice chillingly cold. Intentional assault. A few years in prison should do it. Talia almost instantly dropped to her knees. Mr. Knight, it really wasn't me, don't let them. But before she could finish her stammered sentence, the bodyguards had rushed in, grabbed her, and started dragging her out. In that moment, Talia knew. The man's previous warmth was all an act, a performance for that viper, Penelope. Why? Why did that viper get this man's love, while she had to go to jail over a thumbtack? It was completely unreasonable she wouldn't accept it after the person was dragged away. Ethan instructed his assistant, pack up all her things and throw them out. The assistant nodded. Mr. Knight, what about the wedding tomorrow? Cancelled. But the assistant looked troubled. Mrs. Knightasar seems to be. Don't worry about her. I'll explain. After the assistant left, Ethan sat on the floor, holding Penelope's ballet shoes all night. Beside him were the diary he had retrieved from the trash and the photo albums he had snatched from her. He looked at her delicate handwriting, each stroke filled with her thoughts, and almost all of them were about him. She wrote about how she loved him, how she waited for him, how she looked forward to her 24th birthday. In the photos, her smile was radiant. The sweet way she slept against his chest. Her fear of thunder, which always made her crawl into his bed with her blanket, clutching his arm like a drowning person clinging to a reed. But now, his arms would never feel her warmth again. Ethan's heart ached unbearably, and his lungs spasmed. He fumbled in his pocket for a pill bottle, shook out a pill, and swallowed it. At dawn, Ethan received a call from his doctor. Mr. Knight, I've consulted with the most renowned cancer specialists. Your situation is not entirely hopeless. With a successful surgery and a regimen of medication, if you take good care of yourself, living another 5, 6, or even 10 years is not out of the question. Ethan's lifeless eyes suddenly lit up. His voice was hoarse. What are the chances of the surgery being successful? 80%. The doctor, somewhat aware of his situation, advised, Mr. Knight, life is short. You should seize the opportunities you have. No one knows what the future holds. We must grasp the chances we have now, or we'll regret it for a lifetime. Ethan immediately got up, placed everything on the bed, and drove to the hospital. He wanted to have the surgery as soon as possible, and then go find her. Even if they couldn't grow old together, 10 years wasn't short. He could still love her well, give her a better future. Just as Ethan arrived at the hospital, he got a call from his assistant. Mr. Knight, something's happened. There was a tsunami in Santa Monica, Los Angeles. Miss Sterling was there when it hit. Los Angeles International Airport. Ethan had bought a ticket and flown overnight. The moment he landed, he got into a car, disheveled, and rushed toward Santa Monica Beach. The general assistant from the LA branch who picked him up explained, when it happened, Miss Sterling was on the Ferris wheel at the pier, the closest point to the tsunami. The Sterling family sent people to search, but she's still missing. The assistant glanced at his watch while driving. It's been 18 hours since Miss Sterling went missing. There are still aftershocks. If there's no news within 24 hours, she might really be. Ethan didn't like hearing people speculate about Penelope's fate. His handsome face was grim as he cut the assistant off coldly. She's alive. Sensing the tense atmosphere, the assistant took a sharp breath and quickly agreed. Yes, Miss Sterling is blessed. She'll be fine. Where's Leo? Mr. Sterling went to Santa Monica with Miss Sterling. But just before the incident, he received a call from the company and left for a bit. So Miss Sterling went on the Ferris wheel by herself. The assistant glanced at Ethan in the rearview mirror, feeling the chilling aura emanating from the man. He added quietly, but it seems Mr. Sterling has already gone into the disaster zone with a rescue team, and we've lost contact with him too. Ethan's brows knitted tightly, his dark eyes filled with a frosty chill. His hands clenched into fists, the knuckles cracking from the force. No wonder he couldn't reach Leo. He was in the disaster zone. "Mr. Knight, we should go to the hotel first. Even if we go now, go to Santa Monica." Ethan yanked off his tie, took off his suit jacket, unfastened his cufflinks, and rolled his white shirt sleeves up to his forearms. "I'm going into the disaster zone." The assistant was so scared he started stammering. "Mr. Knight, that's not a good idea if Mrs. Knight SR finds out, Ethan looked up, his deep, cold gaze sweeping sharply across the assistant's face, making him shiver. "I understand. I'll arrange for professional personnel to accompany you into the disaster zone, Mr. Knight." Because a large area of streets near the beach was flooded, they had to park their car nearly 6 miles away. The rest of the way had to be covered by raft and on foot. The assistant found a professional rescue team and gave Ethan a life vest. He put one on himself, intending to go in with him, but Ethan stopped him. "You stay here, Mr. Knight." The assistant didn't want to go, but he was more afraid of something happening to Ethan inside. That would be the end of him, but Ethan just gave him a faint glance. "You're in charge of continuing to contact the Sterling family. If you find Penny, call me." Without waiting for a reply, Ethan strode onto the raft. Apart from his furrowed brows, his face was expressionless, as if he weren't heading into a disaster zone. The tsunami had come suddenly, catching everyone off guard. It was a weekend, and the beach was crowded. The further in they went, the more bodies they saw floating in the water. The rescue workers looked away, but Ethan reached out and checked each one. He didn't want to find Penelope among them, but he was more terrified of missing her. When they reached the Santa Monica beach area, a sudden aftershock hit. Although the rescue team reacted quickly, taking emergency measures, a wave still knocked Ethan into the water. As he was swept under, Ethan swallowed a large mouthful of salty seawater. The saltiness spread from his mouth to the tip of his heart. Suddenly, he was filled with regret. If something really happened to her, he would be the biggest sinner. If he hadn't pushed her so hard, she never would have left in anger and run into a tsunami. Ethan's body was battered by branches in the water. He could feel a sharp pain in his leg, but he couldn't spare it a thought. All he could think about was Penelope. He had to find her. He fought his way to the surface, grabbed a nearby cable, and leaned against a submerged car to steady himself. The rescue team's boat arrived and pulled him from the water. "Mr. Knight," the team leader's face paled when he saw the bleeding wound on Ethan's thigh. "We have to take you back. Your thigh is injured. If you continue, it will get infected." Ethan looked at the blood gushing from the wound. He frowned, tore a piece from the hem of his shirt, and skillfully tied it around his bleeding thigh. His voice was hoarse and cold. "I'm not going back. Keep moving forward." "But, no buts." Ethan looked up, his deep, dark eyes filled with a murderous glint. When the tsunami hit, Penny was here. The impact she took was much stronger than that. "If I can't handle this, what about her?" The rescue leader didn't dare argue and fell silent, continuing the search for Penelope. But even after reaching the front line, they found no trace of her. Not alive, not dead, not even a part of her. Nothing. Ethan's heart sank to the bottom of the sea, turning to ice. "Mr. Knight," according to the assistant, Miss Sterling was on the Ferris wheel. The force of the tsunami was so strong, it's very likely she was swept into the sea the moment it hit. In that case, there's no... "Shut up!" Before he could finish, Ethan roared. "Penny is alive, she's okay." Seeing his bloodshot eyes and murderous aura, the rescue leader suggested, "Why don't we check the temporary shelters? Maybe Miss Sterling has already been rescued and taken there." Ethan's thin lips were pressed into a tight line, his dark eyes now tinged with red, his mind in chaos. "If I can't find Penny at the shelter, what do I do?" By the time he realized it, he was trembling all over. The team wanted to advise him, but his expression scared them into silence. When they arrived at the temporary shelter, it was already evening. It was pitch black, filled with people, and surrounded by hysterical sobs and wails. In the darkness, it felt like a chorus of vengeful souls from hell, truly eerie. Ethan found the person in charge of registration, but after searching the list, he couldn't find Penelope's name. The person pointed to a row of body bags nearby. "Sir, maybe the person you're looking for is over there. Those haven't been registered." He ran over, lifting the shrouds one by one. None of them were her. Ethan turned and searched the entire shelter, up and down, but still no sign of Penelope. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Where was his Penny? The rescue team leader contacted the assistant. The Sterling family had no news of Penelope or Leo either. Ethan was frantic, his face pale, his body shaking. Even his clenched fists were trembling too much to stay tight. Are there any other shelters? There should be, but it's dark now. Getting there will be difficult. There might still be. Without waiting for the man to finish, Ethan turned and started walking toward the second shelter. The rescue team couldn't keep up and lost him. Ethan didn't notice. He gritted his teeth against the pain in his leg and walked step by step into the darkness. Even if the path ahead was a desolate wasteland, a living hell, he would keep going for her until he found her. But he didn't realize that not far behind him, a Chinese man was holding a woman. Fearing the evening wind would chill her, he had wrapped her in a red blanket, only her pale little face visible. The woman was Penelope, still unconscious. After leaving the first shelter, Ethan encountered more debris from houses destroyed by the tsunami. The immense force had shattered them, leaving rebar exposed everywhere. Palm trees swept in by the waves lay across the path, forming barricades. Ethan wanted to cross, but he couldn't see well enough to judge the situation. He took out his phone to turn on the flashlight, only to find it was waterlogged and dead. He had no choice but to feel his way forward. It went smoothly at first, but after a few steps, his uninjured leg stepped into a hole, and an exposed piece of rebar pierced through his calf muscle. A bone-deep pain shot through his entire body, but Ethan only winced, then forcefully pulled his leg free and continued to limp forward. He hadn't found Penny yet. He couldn't stop. He didn't know how long he walked. Along the way, he met another group of people and followed them to the second shelter. There, he searched again. But still, among the dead, the living, the injured, not one was her. Ethan completely broke down. His usually calm face twisted in panic. He grabbed person after person, asking if they had seen Penelope. But before he could find anyone, he couldn't hold on any longer. He had left in such a hurry he hadn't even brought his medication. Now, a spasm seized his lungs, and he leaned against a wall, coughing violently. He ended up spitting out a mouthful of blood, gasping for air against the wall. With blood flowing nonstop from both legs, he could no longer stand. As he took a step, he stumbled and nearly fell, but a hand behind him caught him. "Penny!" Ethan turned around, his heart leaping with joy. But when he saw the person's figure, his hope instantly faded. "Thank you." The tall figure stepped into the light, his probing gaze sweeping over Ethan from head to toe. He said coldly, "Ethan Knight, since you chose to marry someone else, what's with this act of deep affection now?" Ethan froze, and in the dim light he finally recognized the man's face. His lips trembled. "Leo." "Ha, so you can still recognize people. You're not dead yet." Leo, furious at him for betraying his sister, immediately let go. "Go back, I don't want Penny to see you in this state. Go back and get married. Live your life as Ethan Knight and stop bothering. I had my reasons." "Reasons? What kind of reason could possibly justify hurting Penny like that?" "I'm sorry." Ethan didn't argue. He looked down, a flicker of desolation in his eyes, a bitter smile on his lips. "Leo, I have lung cancer, it's terminal." "Lung cancer? Terminal?" Leo's figure stiffened, his dark eyes filled with disbelief. "What did you say? You don't need to tell a lie like that." He was only 29, how could he have lung cancer? And terminal at that? What kind of joke was this? Ethan looked up at him with a smile. "I wish it were a lie, Leo, but it's the truth. The doctor said I have less than a year. That's why I pushed her away." He looked up at the dark sky, his expression lost and frightened. "But I regret it now, I shouldn't have done that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lost her. Penny, my Penny, where are you?" "It's too late for regrets." Leo's expression was unreadable, but his words offered no retreat. "Ethan, what you did is a fact. Penny won't forget it. You only have a year. Even if you regret it, what good will it do? You can't give Penny a future." Leo put a hand on his shoulder. "Since you can't give her a future, why keep pestering her? I'll take you to get your wounds treated, and then you can go back on your own. I won't tell Penny you were here." Ethan looked at him with a bitter smile. "Is there really no chance?" "None." Leo gave him no quarter. Ethan finally relented. "Let's just find her first." Later, Ethan would realize that the moment he pushed her away, the red thread of fate between them had snapped. Otherwise, they would not have missed each other at the shelter. After a quick patch-up of his wounds, Ethan limped out again. Since she wasn't here, he had to keep searching until he found her. Leo stood behind him, watching him stumble around, but he didn't say a word. To be honest, watching his old friend, who had gone from a well-dressed gentleman to this battered, wounded mess for the sake of his sister, it was impossible not to feel something. But Leo was clear-headed and calm. Ethan's illness meant he couldn't give Penelope a future. To keep them entangled would only bring pain to both of them. What was the point? Suddenly, Ethan's legs gave out and he fell to the ground. His arms scraped against the rough pavement, leaving 2 bloody gashes, but he ignored them, scrambled up, and kept walking. Leo couldn't watch anymore. He strode forward, pulled the man up from the ground, and cursed, "Enough, stop this. Since you made your choice back then, you shouldn't regret it." Ethan's eyes were red, his dry lips pressed into a thin line. "But the doctor said I might have a chance to extend my life from 1 year to 10. Leo's body trembled slightly, but he remained impassive. "Let it go, Ethan. Just let it go." Perhaps unwilling to watch him search for her while covered in wounds, Leo finally spoke. "We've found Penny. She's okay, just some minor scratches." He added, "I heard that when it happened. A man found her trapped on the Ferris wheel and rescued her in time, so she wasn't seriously injured. An aftershock later knocked her against a car, and she hit her head and passed out, but she's fine now. She's already awake." Ethan could hardly believe it. "Rhea, really?" "Yes, she's been taken to the hospital, so you can rest easy. When the car comes, I'll take you to the hospital and you can contact your family to pick you up." Leo's face was exceptionally cold. "If you really can live another 10 years, then be a good heir to the Knight family, give your grandmother a great-grandchild, and stop wasting time on this lovey-dovey nonsense." Leo truly hated him, but seeing him so battered for Penelope's sake had softened his heart. They were friends, after all. He knew his character. If he didn't genuinely care, he would never have traveled thousands of miles to enter a disaster zone. "Leo, I can't live without Penny." Ethan, pale as a sheet from blood loss, still managed to force himself to speak, word by word. "Let me see her, please." Leo's impassive dark eyes stared at him for a long moment before he shook his head. "Ethan, it's not that I don't want to help you, but Penny has made up her mind." "What?" "Last night I asked her. She said she only has this to say about you: the love has turned to ash, the feelings are gone. There's no use chasing the past." In an instant, Ethan could almost see her standing before him, her face like frost, her eyes lifeless, saying those words one by one. His breath hitched, his heart skipped a beat, and his vision went black as he fainted. They had spent 10 years falling in love, but in just 1 short month, he had broken her heart so completely that their decade of love had turned to ash, impossible to pursue. "Ethan." Leo caught his body, flagged down a nearby nurse, and together they lifted Ethan onto a stretcher. Watching the doctors work on him, he lowered his gaze and dialed a number. "Penny, someone's here. Do you want to see him?" "Hospital." When Ethan woke up, 2 days had passed. The room was empty, just blank white walls and the pungent, sterile smell of disinfectant. Due to severe blood loss and walking on his injured legs for so long, the wounds had become seriously infected. Both legs needed rest. He couldn't walk normally for now. He propped himself up on his arms, leaning against the headboard. His handsome face was pale and bloodless, his dark eyes devoid of any light, a hazy gray. After a moment of silence, he suddenly got up from the bed, dragging his heavy, painful legs to stand, and stumbled toward the door. He wanted to see Penny. Even just to see her from a distance, to confirm she was safe, would be enough. But Ethan's legs couldn't support him. He had just reached the door when his legs gave out, and he fell to the floor. The piercing pain made him suck in a sharp breath, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. But he didn't give up. He forced himself to stand again, grabbing the doorknob to open the door. At the same time, the door was opened from the outside, and a bright, familiar figure appeared in his line of sight. The familiar face, the familiar scent, made him feel for a moment as if a lifetime had passed. Penny." Ethan's voice was hoarse, his gaze burning as it landed on Penelope. The next second, he threw caution to the wind and hugged her. "Penny, it's so good that you're okay. I was so scared something had happened to you. I'm sorry, Penny. It was my fault. I can explain everything. You, brother Ethan." Penelope's expression was calm as she pushed him away. Her clear eyes moved from his face down to his legs. "Your legs are bleeding again. Go lie down. I'll get a doctor." "Don't go." Ethan gripped her wrist tightly, pulling her into his arms again. He held her with all his strength, as if trying to merge her with himself. Penelope felt it was hard to breathe, but this time she didn't push him away. She just said calmly, "Brother Ethan, you should be in Seaport City getting married right now, not here." When she learned that Ethan had come to Los Angeles to find her, she felt as if all the blood in her body had frozen. Especially when she heard that he had entered the disaster zone to find her, had been wounded all over, and had fainted. Her first instinct was to jump out of her hospital bed and run to him. Seeing his handsome face scratched by branches, his legs soaked in blood, his face pale, his brows furrowed, still murmuring her name in his unconscious state, to say she wasn't moved would be a lie. But after the initial emotion, she pulled herself back from the brink. He had come after her, probably because he saw the news about the tsunami and thought she was dead. That's why he came. After all, of all things, human life is the most important. She could have used this to keep him by her side, but a forced relationship is never sweet. He had abandoned their 10-year relationship for Talia. Forgiving him and getting back together would only be repeating the same mistakes. Moreover, the day after Ethan fell unconscious, she received a call from Talia. "Penelope, are you trying to kill Ethan? Using such tricks to force him to come find you, you're shameless. You just wanted to ruin my wedding with Ethan, didn't you? Well, you got what you wanted. Are you happy now?" Grandma Knight was so upset when she heard about Ethan that she ended up in the hospital. "I think you just want something to happen to the whole Knight family. Penny, my wedding with Talia was actually..." Penelope covered his lips with her hand and shook her head. "Brother Ethan, whatever you're feeling right now, don't take it seriously. It's just because of our 10 years together and because you thought I was dead that you feel this guilt. But you have to know, the guilt you feel now is not real." She smiled, her eyes crinkling, but there was no warmth in them. "Your feelings for Talia are real, so I won't tell her anything you just said, and I won't take it seriously. You should rest and get better. When your legs are a bit better, you can go back. Don't keep her waiting too long." Her words completely blocked anything he might have said. If he tried to explain now, how could she believe him? Ethan looked at her in silence, his lips pressed together, saying nothing as she helped him back to bed and the doctor came in to dress his wounds. "Miss Sterling, your friend's leg injuries are very serious. He must avoid walking as much as possible, or the wounds could get repeatedly infected, which would be bad." The doctor paused at the door, looked at the silent Ethan on the bed, and shook his head. "But your friend really has a high tolerance for pain. I'm surprised he hasn't made a sound with injuries like these." Penelope thanked him and stood at the door for a while before going back in. She took a new phone out of her pocket and handed it to him. "I bought you a new phone. It has a new SIM card. You should call Talia and Mrs. Knight to let them know you're safe. I asked the doctor, and your legs should be good enough to walk on in about a week. You can book a flight back to Seaport City then." Ethan didn't speak, his dark eyes staring blankly out the window, his expression empty and desolate, impossible to read. Penelope bit her lip, feeling an inexplicable frustration, but she still said, "I've said everything I need to say. I've already contacted your assistant. He's on his way. I'll be leaving now." With that, she turned to go. Ethan seemed to snap out of his daze and called out, "Wait." Penelope stopped and looked at him. "While I was unconscious, were you the one taking care of me?" Ethan's inky eyes were so deep, like a black hole that could always pull her in. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, Leo said you were injured because you were looking for me and that it delayed your treatment. It was my duty to take care of you." But his reaction upon waking made her feel she couldn't continue like this, which was why she had decided to disappear. "Penny," Ethan looked up at her. "Do you really not have any feelings for me anymore?" Penelope clenched her fists, silent for a long moment before lifting her face into a smile. "No, I don't. My heart died the moment you said you were marrying Talia." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. A wave of dizziness washed over him, making him feel that even though she was so close, she was a world away, so far he could never touch her. "I already know about the ballet shoe. I sent Talia to the police." A bitter smile played on Ethan's lips. "I never intended to marry Talia. Everything was a mistake based on my own assumptions. So you can hate me, resent me, I'll accept it all. But Penny," he looked at her with determination, "I won't let go again. This time I will never let you go." Even if it takes another 10 years, I'm willing. Penelope stood frozen, her long lashes fluttering. Her dark pupils stared at him, bewildered. What did you just say? You sent Talia to the police? But she had just received a call from Talia yesterday. Her tone and accusations didn't sound like someone who had been in police custody. Who was lying? She tampered with your ballet shoe and hurt you. Of course, she should be reported to the police. Ethan, seemingly unaware of the change in her expression, continued calmly, I never expected her to be like that. Does your foot still hurt? Penelope stood there, staring at him as if in a trance, and shook her head. It doesn't hurt anymore. Her foot didn't hurt, and her heart didn't seem to ache as much either. Facing the man she had loved for so many years, she felt surprisingly calm and collected. If this were the old her, she would have believed him and thrown herself into his arms. But now, Brother Ethan, Talia is very concerned about you. She called last night to ask how you were, so I don't think you need to say things like that. Penelope sighed softly and smiled. I think maybe because we lived together for 10 years, you're just not used to me being gone. Sometimes, habit is a terrible thing. It can make you go against your own heart. But Brother Ethan, habit isn't love. Back in Seaport City, I saw everything between you and Talia. The way you protected her, the way you pushed me aside, I saw it all clearly. Maybe when she's not around, you think of me, but when she is, you choose her without hesitation. So please stop saying these things out of anger. She looked at him faintly. Brother Ethan, we're not children anymore. When you make a choice, you should be mature about it, not waver back and forth. That kind of push and pull will only make all three of us miserable. There's no need for it, is there? Penny, Talia, and I? Penny, before Ethan could finish, a deep, cheerful male voice sounded from outside the door. Are you feeling better? Even though your head is fine, you should still rest. If you have time, come in for another scan in a couple of days. I'll check you over carefully. Head injuries can be tricky. Penelope hadn't expected to run into him here. She froze for a second, then turned to look at the tall, handsome, and refined man and smiled. Dr. Mercer, you work at this hospital? Yes, I was taking my niece out for the day and happened to be there during the tsunami. He, Dr. Quentin Mercer, was the one who had saved her from the Ferris wheel during the tsunami. If it weren't for him, she would have been lost to the sea. Thank you so much for that day. Penelope took out her phone. Could I get your number? I'd like to treat you to a meal to thank you. Of course. Quentin smiled warmly at her. But why not today? I'm just about to get off work. There's no time like the present, right? Penelope blinked and glanced at Ethan in the hospital room. Today might be. Quentin then strode forward to the doorway and looked inside. When he saw Ethan, his eyes darkened slightly. Boyfriend? No. Yes. The two spoke at the same time, and the atmosphere instantly became awkward. Penelope shot a glare at Ethan, then turned back to Quentin. He's a brother of mine. He came looking for me after he heard about the tsunami and got injured, so I need to take care of him. Can we do dinner another time? Quentin's gaze softened, a gentle smile in his eyes. All right. I'll wait for your call. I'll definitely call. After Quentin left, Ethan's face was grim. Why were you in such a hurry to deny our relationship? Are you being so cold to me because you've fallen for him? Penelope shook her head. Because we're not together. Your fiancée is Talia. Then she gave a helpless smile. Brother Ethan, you're being very immature right now. Because Ethan kept resisting treatment, Penelope ended up staying at the hospital with him that night. Penny, give me your hand. Ethan didn't mention Talia or Quentin again. His gaze was fixed fervently on Penelope, afraid to close his eyes for fear she would disappear. But the medication was starting to take effect, making his eyelids heavier and heavier. Afraid he would cause a scene, Penelope gave him her hand. Ethan's large, dry hand enveloped her small one, holding it tightly as if terrified she would vanish if he let go. Penny, let's start over. This time I'll be the one to pursue you, okay? Penelope didn't answer. Her cool gaze rested on him, her heart fluttering despite itself, but her mind was crystal clear. She remained silent until Ethan's intense gaze made her ears turn red. Then she finally spoke, focus on getting your leg better first. It's time to sleep now, I'll watch over you. You won't leave? I won't. When Ethan closed his eyes, she stared at his peaceful, sleeping face, a strange sense of déjà vu washing over her. It used to be her chasing after him, afraid he would leave, afraid he would let go, but he had never given her a definite answer. Before she was 18, he said she was too young. After she turned 18, he said she wasn't calm enough, that she needed to think things through. And so it went in a haze until she was 23. She got drunk, threw herself into his arms, and kissed him. He didn't resist, but he didn't confess or agree either, only saying they would talk on her 24th birthday. Then they continued in that limbo until 2 months ago. Talia burst into their little world, and all those ambiguous feelings were instantly and brutally severed. In the end, he had left her behind and walked away with someone else. Penelope thought about how she had waited 10 years for a commitment she never got, while Talia had conquered the fortress and won the marriage license in just 1 month. During that month, she had often cried late into the night, asking herself where she fell short of Talia, what it was about her that he disliked, but she had no answers. In the month she prepared to leave, he still favored Talia, still flaunted their affection, still hurt her without a second thought. So, the moment she left Seaport City, she was truly in despair. To stay in that relationship would have been to bury herself in a tomb of her own making, and she refused to spend her life that way. But now, she was clear-headed, free, and he had come chasing after her, clinging to her, holding on to her, Penelope sighed. After he was sound asleep, she pried his fingers off her hand, one by one, just as she had once slowly extracted her love for him. It was like peeling back layers, like dying all over again. Finally, she freed her last finger, stood up, gave him one last, deep look, and left the room with her bag, not looking back. She hurried out and, at the hospital entrance, ran into Quentin, who should have been off work long ago. She was stunned. The man was leaning against a black Audi, dressed in a black suit. The moonlight highlighted his sharp jawline, a captivating sight. "Dr. Mercer, what are you still doing here?" Quentin looked up at her, a gentle smile on his lips. "I was waiting for you." "Waiting for me?" "I was afraid you wouldn't call me later, and I'd miss out on that meal, so I waited here to catch you and make you treat me." Even though she knew he was joking, Penelope couldn't help but pout. "I'm not that heartless." "Okay, I know that now. So can you buy me a late-night snack?" Quentin's warm smile was like a lotus blooming in her heart, soothing all her earlier frustrations. So she stepped forward and smiled. "All right, of course I can." Meanwhile, back in the room, Ethan slowly opened his eyes, his dark pupils staring bleakly at the ceiling, his large, bony hand clenched into a tight fist. She was really over him. She wasn't just saying it. After that day, Ethan never sought out Penelope again. He lay quietly in his hospital room, recovering, with his assistant by his side instead of her. He was always silent, either working or staring blankly out the window. A week later, his leg was finally well enough to walk on, and he bought a ticket back to Seaport City that same day. The first thing he did upon landing was visit his grandmother, Beatrice, to explain everything. "Ethan, how could you be so foolish?" Beatrice Knight looked at her grandson with heartache, her wrinkled hand gently stroking his face, her eyes filled with tears. "Such a silly child. You should have told Penny the truth. Penny is a good girl. I was always hoping you two would be together. If you hadn't made that scene with Talia, she slapped her own thigh and sighed heavily. "I wouldn't have bylaid Talia out of jail. When she contacted me, she said you were angry with her and had her arrested. I didn't think much of it and just got her out." Ethan's expression was normal, showing no surprise. He just comforted her. "Grandma, the moment I heard about the tsunami in Los Angeles, I understood. I can't live without her in this life." He curved his lips into a smile. "So, I won't give up on myself and I won't give up on her. After my surgery, I'll go to Los Angeles to find her." Beatrice frowned, her heart bleeding. If she hadn't let him do as he pleased, if she had just arranged his marriage to Penelope directly, maybe none of this would have happened. But how could the past be changed? In the end, she just stroked his head. "Grandma believes in you. Your 10-year bond with Penny can definitely be rekindled." After leaving the Knight family home, Ethan went straight to the villa, planning to tie up loose ends before heading to the hospital for surgery. "Put this here, yes, just like that. Throw this out, it's all just waste paper. Take all this down and replace it. I want to change it to green, pink is so ugly. And here." The moment he got out of the car, he heard Talia's arrogant voice directing movers. Ethan's face instantly froze over. He turned to his assistant and demanded, "Why is she still here? Didn't you change the locks?" "Mrs. Knight SR made the decision. She said you were injured and needed to rest. and told me not to disturb you." Ethan waved his hand dismissively and strode into the villa. His dark eyes were like ice as he watched the workers moving things around. Just then, a worker carrying a box walked past him. Ethan recognized the contents as Penelope's things, with her pink diary right on top. He reached out and snatched it. "All of you get out." His cold voice shattered the bustling activity in the room. Everyone looked from Talia to Ethan, unsure of who to listen to. Ethan's cold gaze swept over them. "Did you not understand what I said?" The workers, seeing that he seemed more like the owner, all scurried away. "Put everything back the way it was." Ethan instructed his assistant, then strode over to place the box on the coffee table. He turned to face Talia, who was standing frozen in place. "Who gave you the right and the nerve?" Talia hadn't expected him back so soon, let alone for him to be so angry. She bit her lip, her eyes red as she looked at him pitifully. "Grandma said I was your wife and I could freely—" "Wife?" Ethan's eyes narrowed, a chilling smile playing on his lips. "Do you think you're worthy?" His tone was light, but it was enough to root Talia to the spot. "Take her to the police station. This time, I'd like to see who dares to bail her out." As he spoke, two burly men walked in and dragged Talia out. "Ethan Knight, you can't do this to me. We have a marriage contract. Grandma acknowledged me." But no matter how much Talia screamed, Ethan didn't even spare her a glance. He never should have hired a woman like this to act in his charade. No wonder Penny had been so angry. After the room was quiet, Ethan slowly picked up the pink notebook, a gentle smile gracing his lips and eyes. He picked up the phone and dialed his doctor. "It's me. I'm ready for the surgery. What's the earliest you can schedule it?" "Penny, soon. Soon, I'll come find you. Just wait for me a little longer." Los Angeles. Due to the tsunami, the university had postponed the start of the semester. With Leo busy at work, Penelope was bored to death at home. She changed her clothes and decided to go out for a stroll. But she had already visited all the places she could think of, so after a bit of aimless wandering, she found a bookstore and decided to go in and read to pass the time. However, before Penelope could even enter the bookstore, a figure zipped past and snatched her purse. She had never experienced anything like this. She stood there, stunned for a moment, before coming to her senses and chasing after him. Stop, don't run, but she was wearing high heels and couldn't run fast. She kicked them off and ran barefoot, chasing him with all her might. "Give me back my bag." She reached for it but missed. She was no match for the man in a physical struggle, especially since he was a large Western man, leaving her feeling helpless. The money and possessions were minor, but there was something very precious in her bag that she had to get back. Unexpectedly, the thief pulled out a small knife and raised his hand to stab her. Penelope was already struggling and had no free hands to block the knife. Just as it was about to strike, a strong hand suddenly appeared, knocking the knife from the thief's hand. In a few swift moves, he had the thief subdued on the ground. A few moments later, the police arrived. The man said a few words, and the police took the thief away. Penelope was still in shock, standing frozen and gasping for breath. "Are you scared?" A warm, magnetic voice sounded from above her. She snapped back to reality and looked at her savior, startled. "You again." Quentin smiled playfully. "What? Are you disappointed to see me?" No. Penelope shook her head repeatedly. "I'm just a little surprised." She awkwardly straightened her messy hair and clothes and bit her lip. "Thank you. You're welcome." Quentin handed her the bag, a mysterious emotion in his dark eyes. "Is there something very important in your bag, important enough to risk your life for?" Penelope nodded and quickly opened her bag, pulling out a small amber pendant. Inside the golden amber was a pink cherry blossom, but the once perfect amber was now cracked down the middle. Quentin saw the desolation in her eyes and felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest, but he didn't say anything. He just swept her up into his arms and carried her toward his car. "Dr. Mercer," Penelope exclaimed, struggling to get down, but Quentin held her tightly. "You're not even wearing shoes. Aren't you afraid of hurting your feet?" He opened the car door, placed her inside, and then knelt down, lifting her foot and carefully wiping the sole with a handkerchief. Penelope was embarrassed and tried to pull her foot back, but Quentin's large hand held her ankle firmly. "Don't move, I'm checking for any cuts. An infection would be bad." Quentin checked her foot, helped her put her shoe on, and then picked up her other foot. He suddenly paused. "You've injured this foot before." Penelope was taken aback, then nodded. Yes, but it's fine now. Even a small injury shouldn't be taken lightly. Quentin got up, took a first aid kit from the trunk, and patiently and gently applied medicine to her foot. Does it hurt? Penelope realized it did hurt a little. She nodded. A little. This injury may look healed, but it never fully recovered, probably because you didn't rest enough and it was soaked in seawater. If it's not treated properly, it could leave lasting problems. Quentin seemed to say more, but Penelope didn't hear it. Thinking about the source of the injury, she thought of that man again. Although she had always acted calm, as if she no longer cared about him, the wound on her heart had left an indelible scar. Penelope picked up the amber pendant again and suddenly let out a small, mocking laugh. She and Ethan had made this amber pendant together. It was his coming-of-age gift to her. She had looked it up. Amber was an ancient token of love, symbolizing eternal love and a lifetime together as one. But even something as seemingly unbreakable as amber had shattered after that brief struggle. Just like her 10 years with Ethan. Was it a gift from the man in the hospital room? Quentin, having finished treating her wound and putting her shoe back on, looked up at the broken amber and asked in a cool, clear voice, "Do you still love him?" His question pulled Penelope back from her memories. He gave it to me, but it's broken now. She stood up, smashed the amber to pieces, then wrapped the shards in a tissue and threw them in a trash can. Quentin stood beside her, watching her with a calm gaze, not asking any more questions, but his mood seemed to have lifted considerably. Penelope dusted the amber fragments off her hands, turned to Quentin, and smiled brightly. "My lifesaver, let me treat you to lunch. What do you say?" "Okay." Quentin's eyes crinkled with a smile. He stepped closer to her, then leaned down to her level. "But, Miss Sterling, a single meal might not be enough for me. What else do you want me to do to repay you?" Quentin narrowed his handsome eyes and smiled. "How about you accompany me somewhere?" "Sure, no problem." Quentin opened the car door. "Get in." On the way, they made small talk. Penelope remained faintly detached, an emotion in her eyes he couldn't quite decipher. But it was precisely this inscrutability that made Quentin's heart feel as if it were being tickled by 1,000 ants. He wanted to know everything about her. For lunch, they had Hunan cuisine, a place Penelope chose. After eating, Quentin drove her to an art gallery. Perhaps because it was a weekday, there weren't many people inside. The atmosphere was quiet and serene, much like the gallery itself. Compared to many galleries with intensely colored paintings, the art here was simple, with soft lines and gentle colors. But Penelope didn't understand much of it. The only thing she could really see was a portrait at the very back. She could tell it was a woman, but not much more. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Penelope shook her head. "Why?" Quentin, one hand in his pocket, a faint smile on his lips, said, "Because whenever my mind is restless or when I'm unhappy, I like to come here. There's a studio behind this place. Want to see it?" "Sure." He expertly led her around the outside to a studio. It wasn't large, but behind it was a forest, making it look quiet and comfortable. "Do you want to paint? It can help you release your emotions." Penelope shook her head. "Although I studied design, I don't really understand fine art. Painting isn't about skill, it's about expressing your heart. It's like talking, just say what you feel." Quentin handed her an apron and pointed to a blank wall. "Why don't you treat this wall as your canvas? Use any color you want." Penelope didn't refuse this time. She put on the apron and started splashing different colors onto the wall. She didn't stop until she was tired and had sunk to the floor, completely unconcerned with her appearance. "Dr. Mercer, you asked me before if I still loved him. I can answer you now." Quentin sat down beside her, looking at her with his warm gaze, waiting for her answer. She smiled. "I don't." She remembered that the first meal Ethan ever took her out for was Hunan cuisine. So today, she had it with Quentin, and she realized it really wasn't that important, not irreplaceable. The broken amber, the wound on her foot, it seemed like everything was telling her that they were well and truly over. Even fate was against them. When I first came to Los Angeles, I kept saying I had let go, that it was in the past. But I think, in my heart, I hadn't really moved on. After all, I still cared whether he got married or not. Penelope took a deep breath, her eyes smiling into crescents. "But now, I suddenly feel that whether he's married or not, whether he ever loved me or not, it doesn't matter anymore. I was happy during those 10 years, and for the rest of my life, I will be happy without him." She looked at Quentin. I guess some people are just meant to be in your life for a little while. 1 month later, Los Angeles. After his surgery and only half a month of recovery, Ethan immediately booked a flight to Los Angeles. He wanted to see her. Desperately, eagerly, he wanted to see her. Learning that Penelope was living in Leo's apartment, Ethan drove straight there from the airport. He parked the car and sat, nervously tapping the steering wheel, replaying over and over in his mind what he would say when he saw her. Just as he was about to open the door, an Audi drove up and parked in front of the building. A tall, imposing man got out of the driver's seat. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He recognized the man as the doctor from the hospital. A sharp pain shot through his heart and a bad feeling filled his mind. "How did you get here so fast?" A familiar voice sounded, and Ethan looked up to see Penelope walking out of the building, wearing a long, silk, forest green dress. "I wanted to see you sooner." Quentin opened the car door and gallantly shielded her head. "Please, get in." At first, Penelope had been a little unused to it, but after so many times, she had grown accustomed to his chivalry. She couldn't help but smile. "Are you this much of a gentleman with every woman?" Quentin raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. "Are you jealous?" "No, I'm just curious." Quentin leaned in close, their faces almost touching, so close they could feel each other's breath. Penelope's ears turned red, and she leaned back uncomfortably. What are you doing?" "Fastening your seatbelt." Quentin reached over, grabbed the seatbelt, and smiled warmly. "Penny, I'm not that casual, and I would never treat you casually. Without your permission, I won't do anything." His words made Penelope freeze, and she thought of another man. Before meeting Quentin, she had always thought Ethan treated her exceptionally well. But after meeting Quentin, she realized that Ethan had never given her a direct promise, never truly given her equal respect. Perhaps because she had been too forward, he had taken her for granted, treating her so casually. He would kiss her when he was drunk, hold her when he knew she was scared, but he had never given their relationship a clear definition. What were they? Why could they be as close as lovers, yet be defined as brother and sister? Seeing her lost in thought, Quentin reached out and gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "What's wrong? Did I do something to—" "No," Penelope shook her head and smiled. "I was just thinking about that man again." Quentin's expression didn't change much, but his rough thumb gently brushed her cheek. "I won't pressure you. A 10-year relationship does take a long time to forget, but I have plenty of time, and I'm confident. If you ever get tired of me, I'll disappear. I wouldn't. I never said anything like that." Penelope pouted and grabbed his hand. "You talk so calmly, but why are you touching my face? Taking advantage of me?" "Yes, I am. I'm taking advantage of you." Quentin's honesty left Penelope speechless. All she could say was, "Let's go. Didn't you say the party is about to start? Let's go." Quentin straightened up. Just as he was about to close the door, he saw a handsome, tall man standing in front of his car. His expression shifted slightly, but he remained calm and patted Penelope's arm. "Penny, look up. He's here." Penelope looked up and saw Ethan standing in front of the Audi, his dark eyes fixed on her. A flicker of surprise crossed her face as she unbuckled her seatbelt and got out of the car. "Brother Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ethan's cold gaze swept over Quentin's face before finally landing on her. His voice was hoarse and low. "Penny, I came for you." He had had the surgery. It had successfully extended his life by at least 10 years. 10 years, just like the decade they had once shared. He thought 10 years would be enough. Perhaps he was being selfish, but when he had faced the end of the world, he realized that if his future didn't have her in it, he truly didn't have the courage to go on. But it seemed he was too late. It had only been a month. Why was there another man by her side? Did their 10 years mean so little to her? Quentin tactfully stepped aside and said to Penelope, "Penny, my event isn't urgent. Why don't you two go up and talk?" "No need." Penelope naturally linked her arm with his, resting her head on his arm, and looked up with a smile. "I'm your date. How could I abandon you?" Penny, before Quentin could speak, Ethan was already getting agitated. He strode forward. "Penny, don't be angry with me, okay? Can you just let me explain everything?" "No need." She still used those same 2 words, cold and distant, making Ethan feel as if a lifetime had passed. Just a month ago, she was by his side. "Penny, brother Ethan, no matter what you want to explain, you were the one who did all those things, weren't you?" If you want to tell me you don't love Talia, that it was all fake, then why did you put on that show? Wasn't it also because you wanted me to leave you, to let you go? Penelope's gaze was faint as it rested on him, but Ethan couldn't find his own reflection in her bright eyes, leaving him with an empty, painful feeling in his heart. I tried to make excuses for you, but in the end, I couldn't convince myself to shamelessly stay by your side. Because no matter what your reasons were, you hurt me and you pushed me away. Penelope's lips curved, but there was no smile in her distant eyes. You did kiss Talia in front of me, you flirted with her, you lay naked with her, and now you're telling me you love me. Don't you find that absurd? You made promises to her that you never made to me. If everything with her was fake, was everything with me real? You used to say I was too young, but from 18 to 24, there were 6 whole years. Did you ever say a single word? There were some things she hadn't wanted to say, but with Ethan chasing her all the way to Lowe's Angels, she had no choice but to lay everything bare. Finally, she hugged Quentin's arm tighter and smiled. Brother Ethan, I'm not saying this out of spite, I just don't love you anymore. If it had been the earlier words, Ethan could have told himself she was complaining, that she was angry, that she was jealous. But that last sentence was a death sentence. Penny, brother Ethan, I've thought about it very clearly. I really don't love you anymore. Penelope tilted her head up. Now, the one I like is Quentin. A derisive laugh escaped Ethan's lips. You like him? You've only known him for a month? A month? Yes. It also took you a month to find Talia. After you broke my heart, I gave you a month to win me back, but you hurt me again. Penelope looked at him with extraordinary calmness. Brother Ethan, a lot can happen in a month, and what has happened. It can't be fixed or undone. Go back. Whether it's Talia or someone else, find a woman you genuinely love, get married, live a good life, take care of grandma, and build up the Knight Corporation. I have already set sail on a new journey. We are on different paths. With that, she tugged on Quentin's arm. Let's go, it's getting late. By the time Ethan came to his senses, Quentin's Audi had already driven out of the complex, leaving him alone, just like their relationship. Ethan didn't know how long he stood there. It wasn't until Leo came back that he was brought inside. I told you, she's clear-headed and she's resolute. Ethan stood on the balcony, looking at the night sky, his dark eyes a bleak gray. Leo seemed to remember something and asked with a serious expression, You didn't tell her about your illness, did you? I can live for at least another 10 years. Ethan looked up, his gaze cold and fixed on him. But now, these 10 years are meaningless. I'd rather die in her arms right now. Maybe then she'd remember me a little longer. Leo just gave him a faint look and handed him a bottle of beer. Ethan, you won't. Yes, he wouldn't. He was just talking out of anger. How could he bear to actually die in front of her and make her sad? Ethan opened the beer and took a large gulp, then laughed. Leo, I think, maybe I never understood love. Or maybe I never thought that one day, she might really stop loving me. He put on that whole act, hoping she would hate him, leave him, but deep down, he never imagined a day like this would actually come. Perhaps, subconsciously, he had always believed that no matter what, Penelope would be there waiting for him, loving him. After a long silence, Leo leaned against the railing and murmured, The fact that you didn't tell her about your illness proves that you do understand. He turned his head to look at Ethan. Penny is a sentimental, loyal, and soft-hearted person. If you had told her about the cancer, she would have come back to you. Even if she didn't love you anymore, she would have taken care of you, stayed with you, and done everything she could to make you happy. Yes, I know. A bitter smile touched Ethan's lips. But if it's not love, forcing her to stay by my side would only make us both miserable, wouldn't it? I've already wasted 10 years of her life. If I waste another 10, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to meet her in the next life. He had even thought that if Penelope had come back that night, maybe he would have gotten drunk and let everything slip out. But that night, as if she knew, Penelope didn't return. She didn't come back to the apartment until after Ethan had boarded his flight home, still wearing that same forest green silk dress. Seeing her return, Leo handed her a brocade box. Ethan left this. He said, whether you want it or not, it's for you. But Penelope didn't even look at it. She shook her head. Mail it back to Grandma Knight. You're not even going to look? No, I can guess what it is. It's not appropriate for me to have something like that. He'll get married eventually. Why leave a potential problem for himself? Penelope looked out the window and murmured, He's already ruined one relationship. It would be a total loss if he ruined the next one because of the last. And for that same reason, she had to cut all ties with the past. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to Quentin. Seaport City. 3 months later, Ethan received a wedding invitation mailed from Leo. The bride, Penelope Sterling. The groom, Quentin Mercer. In their photo, they looked like a perfect match. She was smiling so happily, her eyes filled with genuine joy, not a pretense. Ethan smiled bitterly and tucked the invitation into the pink diary he kept on his bedside table. He started working day and night, often sleeping at the office because he was afraid that going home would make him think of Penelope, of his terrible decision. He was afraid he would hate himself. But his behavior worried Beatrice Knight. Talia was gone, Penelope was gone, but she still wanted a great-grandchild. She started arranging blind dates for him incessantly. But Ethan, while always polite, would turn them down flatly afterward. Even when one woman tried to drug him, he remained unmoved. It got to the point where rumors spread among the women of Seaport City that the city's wealthiest man, Mr. Knight, was impotent. Ethan didn't care. He used it as an excuse to refuse all blind dates. About a year passed like this when Ethan's condition suddenly worsened. The 10 years he was supposed to have had shrunk to just 1 month. He didn't choose to be hospitalized for that last month. Instead, he bought a ticket to Los Angeles and went to the university Penelope attended, watching her from a distance. He watched her go to class, laugh and talk with her classmates, and walk hand in hand with Quentin across the campus. When he was on his last legs, he contacted Leo and asked to be cremated and buried in Los Angeles. He said, "Leo, I know I have no right to give Penny happiness, and I don't dare contact her and ruin her life. But I have one last small wish. I hope I can remain in the land where she lives, silently watching over her forever." On the day of Ethan's burial, there was only one person at his gravestone: Leo.